Good morning. On behalf of President Gallagher and the Ohio Dominican community, I extend a warm and delightful welcome to each one of you. My name is Margaret Pomfrey. I work for our President Connie as Executive Vice President here at ODU, and we are just thrilled to be hosting you today, and the members of the Chamber of Commerce. For those of you who are new to Ohio Dominican, have you all been here before? Do you know about Ohio Dominican? How many are new to Ohio Dominican? Okay. I want to tell you, I'm really proud to share it. We're Central Ohio's only private Catholic institution. And our history dates back to 1911. We were founded by the Dominican Sisters of Peace. So if you go right around the corner from Ohio Dominican, you'll see the Mother House. We have about 80 of our sisters who live here on campus, which is really cool. They teach in our classrooms. They serve on our executive committee, and they also serve on the board of trustees. And they're just a wonderful group of women who really drive the mission at Ohio Dominican. We have over 50 undergraduate majors here. We also have graduate programs as well. Probably most known to you would be our MBA, which is a really flexible MBA program. We have a degree and certificate in supply chain management, and that's also been very popular at Ohio Dominican. And two, I'll tell you the one thing that we've really looked at is trying to be more workforce relevant, right? There's a disconnect between education and what our workforce and our communities need. And so this year we launched data analytics, we launched supply chain management, cybersecurity, IT, and just recently a graduate program in anesthesiologist assistance. And so that program was filled immediately. We have a great PA program that we're known for as well. But let me take a minute and tell you, I wish Connie could be here with you today. I don't know, how many of you know Connie Gallagher? Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about her. She is an amazing, amazing leader. She's not your traditional university president. She is a proud alumna of The Ohio State University, so private higher education was not in her wheelhouse. On Friday mornings, if you're in Erskine Hall where her office is, you can hear the OSU band. I mean, she is such a Buckeye fan. You can hear it throughout Erskine. She's blaring it in her office getting ready for the game. She's also a registered nurse of more than 45 years. She worked in all three major health systems here in Columbus as an executive. Her last 14 years in her career, she was at Ohio Health, where she served as a COO, and then the president of Ohio Health's at-home care, which was to help people remain in their home and provide them with the services that they needed to thrive in their home. So it's very different. She retired, and literally 30 seconds later, she came in as Ohio Dominican's president. She's a woman who drives innovation, and if you know her, you know she's also a driver who likes to arrive very quickly. You want to be behind her when you're on 270. And so I like to think about Connie. When I think about Connie, I think when her feet hit the floor in the morning, she's just that woman who moves with a vast purpose. She knows what she wants to do. She can see a clear picture, and she goes after it. So in the first few months of her presidency, she noticed a disconnect between what the workforce needs and what higher education is providing. And so she launched this anesthesiologist assistance program because she knows there's a need for it. And the deeper that Connie, the longer she's been at Ohio Dominican, this is her third year, she's very interested in how our university can serve the workforce. How can we be a preferred partner? What do you need? And the one thing that I believe that we have found at Ohio Dominican, because we're a smaller institution, there's just remarkable flexibility and responsiveness. So when she's talking to corporate, people that she has, not just corporate, private industry as well, her first question is, how can we help you? And so I just want you to know, if there's ever something that you need from us, please let us know, because our faculty are great, she's great, and she's really turning the model on its head to say, what do you need? We have awesome undergraduate students. Here at Ohio Dominican, 47% of our students are Pell eligible. We're this close to being a minority serving institution. A lot of people don't know that. We have great athletics, Division II athletics as well. but we have a really diverse student body. We welcome students from more than 22 countries. It's a really, really interesting, cool campus. So if you ever want to discuss any partnerships or how we can help you if you need interns, our students are looking for those kinds of opportunities to get in and actually have that workforce development work. These students today don't understand how a degree translates to what they need to do in this world. And that's where private industry or public companies can help with getting the students in and giving them those kinds of experiences and recruiting them. They're great students. They are this generation. I can't wait to continue to watch what they do with our world, because they're just great people who want to do the right things. So just wanted to wish you extend a warm welcome to all of you. We hope that you enjoy our campus as much as we do. And if you have any questions, please let us know. We're here to serve you, here to work for you. So now, without further ado, please join me in extending a warm welcome to Brandon Embers from Schneider Downs.
Thank you. And this is actually me. I just have a little more hair now. Which I guess is a good thing, right? I'm going in the right direction there. But welcome to the Columbus Region Logistics Council's Regional Change Driving Logistics Evolution. I think I got that right. I am Brandon Embers. I'm a senior audit manager with Schneider Downs. Presenting partners in CRLC's event series. The logistics industry is constantly evolving, driven by changes in technology, consumer behavior, and the global economy. Today we're going to focus on the evolution of the change with logistics in the Columbus region. Where Columbus was once the mover in primary retail, was once the mover of primary retail. Now adding to the movement are electronics, pharmaceuticals, and biomedical. Just a little bit about our firm. Schneider Downs was founded in 1956. We have offices in Columbus, Pittsburgh, and Washington, D.C. For over 30 years now, we've served the transportation and logistics industry with audit, tax, and business advisory professionals committed to focusing on the unique issues that impact this industry and the individuals in this room. We serve many of the top 100 companies in the industry, in our markets. I see some familiar faces in the audience today. And if you have any issues that need accounting professional help, we'd love to get to know you better. But without further ado, I would now like to welcome Christine Boucher of the Columbus Chamber of Commerce. Thank you.
Good morning, friends. How is everybody? Right. You didn't get enough coffee. Is the coffee here yet? Do you need more? What's going on? So, good morning. I am so glad that you are all here. This is an exciting part for my job as a CRLC and our committee from our advisory board that worked on putting this together. So thank you very much. I also want to show our appreciation to another presenting partner with Ease Logistics. They are a great sponsor and supporter as well. So thank you to them for their support and sponsorship. So I have the pleasure of, well, let me first back up. If you were here for Women in Supply Chain and Logistics, we talked about the scholarship. Do you remember that? Just not yes, okay. So we have extended the date for that Women in Supply Chain and Logistics scholarship. So we had 7 people, 7 women apply for it through the foundation, Columbus Foundation, and they haven't completed the applications yet. So we want to extend time for them to complete that application by, I believe, the middle of July. But we are still taking donations towards that. Or if you know anybody that is in your is in the field where they are women in supply chain looking to go for additional education at any post-secondary school, Ohio Dominican, our friends at Columbus State, OSU, the Denison Edge. we can be, that scholarship would be applicable there. It is $1,000 per semester. I believe we're doing 4. We're awarding 4. So pass that on. They can do that application through the Columbus Foundation website. So, okay. So I have the pleasure today of introducing Brian Schreiber from the Regional Port Authority. Am I saying it right? Where's Brian?
Columbus Region Airport.
Columbus Region
Airport.
Regional Airport Authority.
I'll
That's
cover it.
about as long as the title of today's.
It's long.
Yeah.
My email address is long too.
And his email address is long, so make sure you have a pen ready when you get that. So he's the manager, air cargo and business development. Oh, here it is. Rickenbacker International Airport. He's the manager of business development at air cargo for the Columbus Regional Airport Authority. Got it. Which operates John Glenn International, Rickenbacker International, and Bolton Field airports in Columbus, Ohio. Brian is responsible for strategy and relationship development centered on building the logistics assets and assisting economic development entities with respect to air cargo, particularly through Rickenbacker International Airport. This includes promotion of logistics partners, which he is on the surrounding the airport, and oversight of Foreign Trade Zone 138, which ENG back there, yay, ENG, is administered by the Airport Authority. Brian focuses on bringing Central Ohio more opportunities for air cargo service and international business attraction. With over 20 years of experience in the Central Ohio airport and logistics industries, Brian began his career in operations and regulatory compliance. He has served in his business development role in the Columbus Regional Airport Authority since 2012. Brian received the Bachelor of Science in Aviation Management from the Ohio State University with a minor in city and regional planning. He also served as the chair. He's got a long bio. I bet.
Somebody else sent that to you.
Just
Somebody else sent that to you.
yeah, because you know why?
Shorter one.
Because you know why?
Because I didn't send it.
Right.
I did.
The Airport Council International and the Air Cargo Committee, and serves on various industry advisory committees in Central Ohio, including the Columbus Region Logistics Council Advisory. We are happy to have him on here and to invite him to the stage. Brian?
Where's the, this too? All right, hope that your technology works. And thank you, Christine. My apologies for not sending the short bio over to you. I think you covered everything I was going to cover about myself.
Now, I did tell you I could have made it up.
You could have.
So you got the better end of it right there.
Yeah, no, I gotta get a concise one. That sounds like my LinkedIn bio or something. So yes, my name is Brian Schreiber, Manager of Business Development for Air Cargo at the Columbus Regional Airport Authority, and my Foreign Trade Zone Administrator, Angie Atwood, is in the back, who you know, a lot of you know. You don't? Go here. So I keep threatening to take the air cargo out of my title, or lobby to have it taken out. I get involved in a lot of other things. But happy to be here this morning. Thank you to Schneider Downs. Thank you to E Logistics. Thank you to Ohio Dominican. Thank you, Christine. It's a pleasure to work with you. I am on the steering committee. Been on that for a long time. Ohio native. Grew up 7 minutes from the GM Lordstown plant. Son of a UAW worker, so that area of Ohio is still very special to me. Came to Columbus in '93, met with my wife-to-be in like '95, and we just kind of never left, accidentally or by good fortune. So that's a little bit about me. I was flying airplanes when I was 16 years old. When I met my wife, thinking I wanted to be a professional pilot, but when I was at Ohio State, they only paid entry-level pilots like $15 an hour, and you were gone forever. And it was not good. It wasn't the environment it is today, let's put it that way. Today, the airlines are actually sending kids to school as a pipeline for pilots, because pilots are in very high demand. There's a big shortage of them. So I went into the management end of things, started an internship with the CMH Airport when I was in school, learned a little bit about airports, and then started at Rickenbacker in '99. when there was two different airport authorities. One was county-based and one was city-based, and they merged in 2003 after I already went to work for the other one, and I ended up kind of back over Rickenbacker, over the years. So, as Christy mentioned, started off in operations. That's really, I didn't know how much I didn't like operations until I started doing business development. It's regulatory compliance. I mean, reading the FAA regulations and making sure the airport is by the letter to the blade of grass or this piece of concrete, all that stuff. TSA came along after 9/11, dealing with them, chasing animals off the runway. That was kind of fun, but the regulatory compliance thing in like 3 different arenas. Until I started doing business development, which I very much enjoy, and not that I didn't enjoy my time in operations, but I really love trying to help Central Ohio grow. Been on trade missions with the state. I was in Tokyo in December with Jobs Ohio and one Columbus. It was Intel related. We went to a semi-con show there, but I had a lot of other meetings surrounding logistics. So I really have a lot of passion for bringing international business to Central Ohio. So a little broader than air cargo, I guess you would say. So that's our entity. There are really 4 legs to that. That's our official corporate chart. But I do want to point out, Angie again in the background, we run 3 airports plus one of the busiest foreign trade zones in the country, and I'll get a little bit more into that in a minute. We are actually a port authority, not an airport authority under the Ohio Revised Code, and that port authority legality allows us to do things like run the foreign trade zone or do development of buildings on properties that are outside the airport. So if we were just an airport authority, we would be restricted to just aviation activity. So mine in Angie's office are at Rickenbacker, and I call us the logistics wing of the airport authority. I'm really happy we don't have, at least I'm happy we don't have to deal with passengers. I think Angie's probably happy too. A little bit about the history of logistics in Central Ohio, and if you've heard me speak over the last 6 months, you've probably seen this before, but it came to me an epiphany one time when I was updating the presentation that Central Ohio has always been a logistics hub. We didn't just become a logistics hub in the last 10 years. I mean, since the beginning of the country when there weren't even roads, human beings dug big gigantic ditches from Lake Erie to the Ohio River, which still blows my mind. That was done by hand. And the canal system ran right through Columbus, and so we have verbs like Canal Winchester, and then Lockbourne, the lock in Lockbourne having to do with the canal, and the namesake of the designator for Rickenbacker International Airport stems from Lockbourne. So if anybody was wondering why Rickenbacker International Airport is LCK, it used to be it started as Lockbourne Army Air Base, was given the designator LCK for Lockbourne, became Lockbourne Air Force Base, and then was renamed for Captain Eddie Rickenbacker when the transition took place around the early 80s. It was actually officially renamed in '79. Eddie was a World War I flying ace. He grew up in Whitehall. I think his house is still on the historic register. Didn't even finish high school, went into the Army, convinced the general to let him fly airplanes even though he had no schooling or anything, but he had a high mechanical aptitude, and he became World War I flying ace. The best flying ace on the U.S. side for World War I, and then went on to become head of Eastern Airlines for 3 decades. He was basically the most famous aviator in the country, probably the world, until Charles Lindbergh crossed the Atlantic from Columbus. So appropriately renamed the airport Rickenbacker International Airport. One other interesting footnote is Eddie Rickenbacker was the inspiration for the Snoopy character in the Snoopy and the Red Baron saga. So if you've heard me speak in the last 6 months, you've heard me relate that as well. So for those of you who are old enough to grow up on Charlie Brown. So the logistics history ties into even the names of things today. And then, of course, if you've been down to the Arena District, you know what the Buggy Works building is. There's some nice lofts and condos and things. It's right in between the baseball stadium and the soccer stadium. That was a buggy manufacturing and repair center on the national road. So getting a little bit further into the history of logistics in the country, as the country was growing westward, Columbus was an important node on the national road, and this Buggy Works building what's important to the logistics going across the country. So, is there anybody from ODW here? Anybody from ODW make it? Okay, so a lot of times they're at these events. They relocated their company headquarters. They're a family-owned logistics company, does a lot of 3PL work here in the region and across the country. And they specifically picked their building downtown for their new headquarters, well, not too anymore, maybe 5 or 6 years ago or so, because of the time of logistics. So a little bit about the history. That's the 10,000 foot view of the Rickenbacker area. You can see all of the distribution. There's probably a lot more of those green areas around the airport that have been filled in. And they continue to fill in, and we have some sites down there that will not only be probably distribution, but they'll be high-tech manufacturing soon. And of course, which data system is it over on 23? Anybody been up 23 lately, south of, north side of the Downs, between side of the Downs and the Outer Belt? Google. There's either Google, Meta, or Amazon. We've got all three of them in the city, so that kind of speaks to the high-tech operations that are coming here. By the way, we're not just an airport, and all these DCs and operations are not just related to the airport. And by and large, a lot of them aren't related to the airport. It's all about the logistics ecosystem. So we have a rail yard, actually both both Class 1 U.S. railroads, as you guys in logistics know. We have the CSX yard in Hilliard, and we have the Norfolk Southern yard here just south of Rickenbacker. So it neatly ties all of your logistics needs for international and domestic into one compact geographic area. I'm going to show some data that is to try to kind of set the stage for how the region is changing and how it's changing our logistics. So our top airport trading, this is air freight that is, some of my things got out of whack when the slides were turned over. Maybe that happens. Open at the 678. This is trade data from U.S. Customs data for things that have actually cleared customs at Rickenbacker International Airport. Not that's been trucked away in bond, not that's gone into foreign trade zone, but actual air freight shipments that have come into the airport and cleared. And as you can see, Vietnam during the pandemic surpassed China as our #1 air trading partner. We were watching that happen. I was in Vietnam before the pandemic, maybe a year before the pandemic, and and this was before the current environment, but a lot of businesses in production and retail manufacturing were migrating to Vietnam already. So we were watching this happen. And then through the trade tariffs of the last administration and the pandemic, China, and there's a couple more slides you'll see, continues to be below Vietnam. I doubt they'll ever come back given the current political environment, at least for our air trade. You can see the top imports in 2022. You have to go all the way down to number 6 before you get to clothing. 5 years ago, clothing was probably all of the top 5. So you can see how our imports are moving to digital high-tech medicines and medical devices on the exports. So again, on the exports, skincare products are kind of related. I'm sure you can, I know which company that is, but you can see there's not a lot of, until you get further down, there's not a lot of clothing. And we're known as the clothing capital of the country. I mean, I was in a meeting in China for Type A one time, and the airline I was meeting with told me they don't fly any Victoria's Secret stuff, so they cannot fly into Columbus. This was right after I started doing business development. And I said, why? They actually said that's Albrantz's airport, the former Albranz guy's airport. Yeah. That was the perception of Columbus. We always want the retail, and we always want our fashion partners to do really well, and we have a lot of them here. But you can see how the marketplace is changing to the data just a little bit. Likewise, this is the pre-COVID and post-COVID change in import value. So the lines that have the green labels on them, that's your fashion and clothing. So you can see before the pandemic, we had 3 of the top 5 were those commodities. And these are all based on harmonized tariff codes. What's the HTT something, another acronym for that? You guys in customs know what I'm talking about. But it's the way to classify imports and exports down to exactly what they are. And the further back you get, the broader it is, and the further forward you go, and it gets down to just specifically like bras and panties, women's or girls' slips. So again, this is all customs data. You can see post-pandemic, it's all, basically all electronics until you get down to number 5, which is medicines. And we're talking about the biomedical industry. And then the fashion and apparel drops down into the bottom half of the top 10. So we're seeing this change in the market in our data that we're collecting from U.S. Customs data. Now a little bit about foreign trade zone, and I think I should be wrapping it up. I didn't actually what time I'm supposed to stop talking. I can talk for like 2.5 hours. One of my former bosses invites me to lecture at Ohio State for his class because he says, I know you can fill the 2.5 hours and I don't have to do anything but sit back and do my other homework. So this is very important, and I've mentioned Angie's name 15 times because yes, technically I'm responsible for foreign trade zone, but Angie is a national expert in foreign trade zone. She consults with other foreign trade zones around the country to advise them on how to do their operations or how to stand up operations. And she's been on her national board in various capacities over the years. So she is really, truly a peer of mine, and a pleasure working with her. And she runs a zone that's a 25-county area in central Ohio that's consistently in the top 10 in the country out of almost 200 active zones. So 11.3 billion US dollars worth of goods entering Angie's zone in 2022. It's a lot of stuff. And that's the stuff that goes into the foreign trade zone. That's not the stuff that's clearing customs. So that's on top of the other stuff that I was already showing. And then, so within Angie's foreign trade zone entries, you would think that, let me try, it's not as complicated to explain this as I'm going to make it. This is classifications of data collected that's required by the Foreign Trade Zone Program of product, type, and country origin. So there's 2 factors here, product type and country origin. The number 1 product type and country origin of items going into our foreign trade zone is pharmaceuticals out of Germany. Probably, well, I don't want to name the big company that's in there. If that big company wasn't in there, probably within the last decade, tops would have been China, clothing out of China, I'm guessing. Angie's shaking her head, yes. Then you can see again how Vietnam surpassed China with the textiles in 2 different classifications. With textiles, footwear, and leather, and electrical machinery and equipment coming out of Vietnam. Then we have Sri Lanka. We have a very big supporting company here in Columbus called EFL that brings a lot of stuff in out of Sri Lanka. Thailand, Indonesia, Japan, and then all the way down to like number 7. I don't know how many down that is before you get to China. So again, marketplace is changing. Product mixes of pharmaceuticals and high tech that are coming into Angie's foreign trade zone. And then, of course, she is working on, it's not that it's going to be any secret, Intel's going to be in the zone and probably a lot of their suppliers. So that's going to keep Angie busy until she retires. I don't really want her to retire. I think 2, 1.5, 2 years? 2. How about 5? How about 2030, because then I'm eligible to retire. I don't want to have to go find somebody that, I will never find a person that knows as much about foreign trade zones, so you better start looking for somebody for us when you leave. This has already been covered. This was covered up at the very top. I don't have to go back over this. Oh man, my thing didn't get placed. When that happens. Anyway, these industries coming that are growing in the region, again, we're going to have the fashion and retail. We always want the fashion and retail. We don't want that to lead. We love our fashion and retail partners. The automotive and EV, the microchip and high-tech manufacturing, the biomedical, healthcare, and pharmaceutical, these disciplines all have supply chains. Like when we were heavily attracting corporate headquarters, like Chase and insurance and stuff like that, those companies don't have supply chains. These industries have supply chains. I stole these next 3 slides from One Columbus. Is anybody here from One Columbus? So I hope I do you justice. I stole them from a Matt McCallister presentation that he did at another logistics event, so I figured that they're fair game. And I'm not going to be able to speak well to them, but it's just some of the insights out of One Columbus. If you don't know who One Columbus is, they are an economic development arm for, I believe, an 11-county area in central Ohio. They pretty much are kind of the business development wing of Jobs Ohio. Jobs Ohio helps attract business by giving incentives and tax breaks and different things, different tools that you can use to attract to Ohio. When you whittle that down into the central Ohio region, it's One Columbus actually doing the footwork for them. So the One Columbus people, in partnership with Jobs Ohio, are out there in the world, in the planet, beating feet and trying to attract businesses. So this is some info that one of their people presented at another. You can see office is 13%. I think Matt said like a decade ago the office projects were huge. It's probably majority office a decade ago, and I sit on and you shake your head.
You're doing great.
It's. I don't want to say anything wrong because I know it'll be back to Matt and Deb and Kenny. Manufacturing projects, 58%. These are not all the same kind of classification, but 46% of the projects are international. 26 of their current projects, and when I say projects, these are companies in the what they call the pipeline that we are looking to attract to have physical located operations here. So 26% semiconductor related, 8% EV related. And those are probably by number because the EV projects are huge. I think the LG Energy Honda JV was something like a $6 billion investment. And then 7% are pure logistics projects, but these other disciplines have logistics operations. So a lot of advanced computing already talked about big gigantic server farm going in up by Rickenbacker. EV ecosystem, they're forming the pipeline. Of course, a lot of semiconductor activity, advanced energy, and then life sciences. And then a couple of the wins are big projects for this year. Within this, you can see, yes, there's a lot of electronics related, but 3 of these are biotech. And they're winning more and more biotech projects, and I believe there's even a biotech focused hub being put in west of OSU, if I'm correct, and it's attracting companies. So, and then just to wrap it up real quickly, this is back to kind of what we're doing at the airport authority. We've a couple of things along these lines to prepare for this change. Excuse me. We have been in touch with the Intel logistics people since before the project was announced. So we're pretty well aware of what they're doing, what their planning is, what their timeline is. I was in Tokyo. I actually met with their Asia logistics manager when I was in Tokyo. I know their Ohio logistics manager. He hasn't moved here from Phoenix yet, but I don't think he likes the winters. He will. And then, so we're working on that in the background with their providers, of course, with their foreign trade zone. And then we just opened up a pharmaceutical handling center for air cargo at Rickenbacker. So I've been working on that for longer than I care to admit. And the private sector didn't want to do it. It's a lot more lucrative. Big development companies in the room, hold your ears, to build a big box distribution center and flip it, than to put the infrastructure into a building necessary for regulatory certified cold chain handling with a lot of redundant systems and all that stuff. It's quite expensive. We invested altogether, including the screening for outbound cargo equipment that we put into this facility, about $2 million. And it's not a large space. We're talking like 10,000 square foot space, $2 million investment to repurpose that space. About $600,000 of that was a grant from Jobs Ohio. But we took it upon ourselves as the airport authority to do it because it filled a need that we knew was in the marketplace forever. Clothing provides the volume to bring our airplanes into Columbus. If you layer pharmaceuticals on top of that, the airline and forwarder yield is could be 3, 4, 5 times what the yield per kilo is on clothing. Plus, there's a ton of it in the region, and we were not capturing any of it during Rickenbacker. So we've just opened this up. I haven't put a press release out about it, but that'll be coming soon. I was in an industry conference this week, talking to our airline partners, just letting them know that they know it's open, but we're having some extended discussions about it. So that's a couple of things we're doing as the airport authority to address the change in the region that's driving logistics change. So with that, I don't know if I'm on time or not, but we still have 52 minutes. All right. 40. Yeah, okay. With that, I want to welcome to the stage our panelists. Matt Arnott is Senior Director of Regional Logistics for Crane Worldwide Logistics. Come on up to the stage. Chad Pfaff, and I believe we've finally figured out how to pronounce that, is Vice President of Product Management at Vantage Point Logistics. Ryan Zelnis, who is Director of Automation Engineering for DHL Supply Chain. Go ahead and have some. So we've assembled these gentlemen specifically to address different disciplines and different aspects of what's going on inside the change in the supply chain and logistics environment here. I guess I'm not going to wrote it out. Matt's going to focus on kind of high tech. Chad's going to focus on biomedical, and Ryan's going to focus on the retail and automation. So, thank you, gentlemen, for coming. With that, I want you to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about the company. And I guess we'll start down there.
All right, thank you, Ryan. Thanks for having us here. Give my last name. I'm used to being last here, so, but not least. So I'm with DHL, part of a new group focused on incorporating automations in the warehousing space, and it's an area of focus that we're seeing a lot of growth in. I'd like to talk a little bit about it today as we go through the panel here. I imagine everyone is familiar with DHL, a large logistics provider and parcel distributor globally. So again, appreciate you having me. Look forward to speaking more.
All right, thanks. I'm Chad Pfaff, VP of Product at BPL, so it's Vantage Point Logistics, but kind of rebrand. You'll see why, because we're a tech company, really. So my responsibilities are product management and product design, so very specific to the software we build. The software we build is sold into healthcare systems. So those are our customers. We sell nationally, so throughout the state plus across the country. So what I'll be talking about are trends that we're going to see really across the country, but applicable certainly here in Columbus area as well. The software we build really enables and helps with the movement of everything into hospitals. So think about everything used for like surgeries, et cetera, as well as the movement in and around hospitals and outside of hospital systems. So that's the software that we're working in and building every day. A lot of the trends that we just talked about here, we're seeing heavily on our side. The pharmaceutical space is certainly blowing up for a lot of different reasons. So I'll talk about that as well.
All right, thanks. Matt Arnott. Nice to meet everybody. Regional Director for Crane Worldwide. Crane Worldwide Logistics is our headquarters in Houston, Texas, but we're a global company, global 3PL, so try to do a lot of comprehensive 3PL work, so anything from the freight forwarding to the warehousing. I focus specifically really on the warehousing within the four walls. So again, to Brian's points, a lot of the things that we're kind of seeing on opportunities that are out there, definitely some of that focus away from the retail side to some of the new things. But yeah, as a 3PL, we are growing, as a lot of these companies are, but been around for about 15 years. Crane has. I've been with Crane for about 7 of those. Seen a lot of growth, of course, recently. But I support a little bit of our region, kind of the eastern half of North America, but based in Columbus, Ohio, where most of our growth has been. So some of those major markets that we're dealing with, Columbus being one, we try to have a market similar to this in the southeast, the west, and of course, in Texas, where the headquarters is, we have a lot of oil and gas type of business. So each market's got its different specialties, you could say, but we're seeing a lot of growth here, obviously, in Columbus, Ohio, probably more so than most markets.
So Matt, I'm going to put you on the spot, and I'm going to go reverse order. So within your area of specialization, in your company's area of specialization, what do you see in not just locally, but globally and nationally, how does that affect your operations here in Columbus and your planning?
Sure. And for us, as I mentioned, 3PL logistics company, so we get involved with a lot of different things. But globally, the freight forwarding rates have decreased quite a bit. So a lot of more of a push towards the ocean side of the business. But then locally, a lot of what we're seeing, Columbus is a strategic distribution point. So a lot of businesses want to be here. It might be a forwarded staging location we can distribute. It's not as maybe specific to having a port, whether that's on the coast, but from there, a lot of product, again, being retail, but now a lot of new types of business want to stage their product here and distribute, being in a good location. So some of the things that we see, Columbus being probably a top location, even if there's multiple locations that some of the clients are looking for, Columbus is still one of those. But we're seeing a bigger priority on sustainability, green initiatives, a lot of the electronics, as Brian mentioned. So not only just for automotive, but kind of some of that sustainability of the facility. So some of these large data centers that are out there, if they go down, they're not just running on power supply like this building might be. So they've got huge generators that need to be up and running and available. So moving those oversized units is extremely important. And with that, there's a lot of storing those, as I mentioned, being forward staging location. To store those, you have to have temp control and humidity control to make sure that those things are within the range to be operable when they get to the final destination.
Okay. Yeah, so for us, again, in the healthcare space specifically, definitely there's a big push for tech-enabled supply chain. Basically, all these hospital groups are turning to cloud-based software, predictive analytics, AI. I don't know if you've heard anything about AI recently, but it's obviously everywhere. But it's all through the lens of helping track inventory, optimize transportation, a lot of different initiatives around that. Cost reduction is a huge part of this. We all know what's going on. Inflationary speaking, that's hitting the hospitals in a big way. So they're certainly looking to reduce those costs there through improved efficiencies. Increased visibility is a big one. So, and that's an area we play in very specifically. So having better visibility than ever before into what's coming into the hospitals. Certainly through the COVID time, we saw a lot of challenges in the supply chain, as everyone's aware. That hit particularly hard for our hospital clients. The challenges they had around that were obviously focused solely on patient care, but coming out of that, they want to make sure that they've got the visibility that they really didn't have when we started the whole thing up here with COVID. The rise of personalized medicine has become huge. And when I talk about personalized medicine, I'm talking about some of the more specific drugs treating very specialized conditions. So if you think about specialty pharmaceuticals around cancer treatment, there's a lot of expense in terms of the drugs themselves, the devices used to deliver those drugs, and then certainly because of the perishable nature of the drugs and some of those regulations around that, that can be expensive. We talked about cold chain a minute ago. That's a big part of this. So precise requirements around temperature control, et cetera, so that making sure we can navigate those new regulations around that, making sure that those drugs are kept whole is huge. Probably the last piece really is home health care. Certainly, again, we were trending towards home health care anyway, but the pandemic certainly exacerbated that and got us there faster. It's a huge impact on supply chain and logistics too, because now we're talking about getting everything needed to treat patients to their homes versus just bringing it into the hospital. It has its own set of challenges. In working through that's become a big part of what we're doing and partnering with our customers to do it.
All right. So for the retail and e-com space, the past 3 years, we had seen a surge in year-over-year growth rates, primarily due to the pandemic, upwards of about 25% year-over-year. We're starting to see a stabilization of those growth rates back down to what they were pre-pandemic levels, so around that 10 to 12% range. And that's really what we're expecting as we continue forward, is to still realize realize that 10 to 12%, but it's actually allowing organizations to kind of take a breath and reevaluate their supply chain needs and be able to shift and grow or put the right solutions in place to continue on that path. More specifically to Columbus, though retail and e-com is familiar and not as exciting as some of the other areas that we're growing in, it still continues to be a very strong location for omni-channel fulfillment here. Given the amount of population that we can reach within the 1 to 2 day windows here. So for single node particularly, very good location, multi-node can add some complexity to that, but still a very big part of the equation.
Brian, just to stick with you for a minute in the retail space, 10 years ago, nobody was automating their warehouses. It was probably to the point you can only able to hire up a bunch of people. I remember one in particular that they invested an incredible amount of money in, and they were really highly successful at halfway automating that warehouse. What are you seeing today in that space? Just in not moving anything specialized, but just getting your clothing or your retail items to your mailbox.
Right. So that's one of the biggest changes that we're seeing internally as an organization is the amount of robotics and automation that we're incorporating into our facilities. And it's not that we're replacing people, we're truly augmenting the people that are already operating within that space, creating more efficiencies so that we can close the gap on the labor constraints that we have so far. With that, it's bringing a need for large, robust IT. Everything that we're doing is very systems driven. So it's creating a kind of a shift towards more IT, and we're seeing an evolution truly of what we call the user interface at the warehousing level. And we're trying to create a familiarity for the operators within that space, the screens, the devices, the handhelds, the tablets that they're working with. Make them very similar to what you're using your phone for on a daily basis, and with the incorporation of things like locus robotics and so on, that can. What we're seeing is quicker turn times for onboarding and training. We can get someone up to speed with picking within locus robotics in as little as 30 minutes, and the productivity ramp to 100% is less than half the time of traditional card picking. So it's a big push. It's not, again, that we're looking to replace any of the workers there. We're all familiar with the fact that it's very difficult to get people in there. So using it to leverage, or leveraging it to become more efficient.
Chad, speaking of augmenting the human, because this wasn't on the preset list of questions, but it was on my mind. AI. You touched on it, so I'm going to ask, what's the breakpoint between automation and AI? And if I understand correctly, your company is like almost a control tower for getting products to where they need to go. How is there AI creeping into that space?
Yeah, it's starting to see it in so many facets of what we do. I think about AI for us, probably two different ways. What's in our products, right? So what would eventually be served up to a user, and then what's used for us working on the product, right? So to help realize efficiencies as we build software. So two pieces that I guess the more end user facing piece is around a lot of predictive analytics and a lot of better insights into movement of product. So understanding it, predicting a lot better than we have before, right? So when we talk to carriers we partner with, whether it's FedEx, UPS, anyone, they've gotten pretty good at prediction and understanding when things are going to make their way somewhere and understanding where delays are. We're augmenting that. We have enough data now to do a good job of feeding a model to understand with more preciseness when something's going to be delayed, why it might be delayed, what that looks like. If we can move that upstream, give more visibility to that to our customers, all the better. That'll help their decision making, and then that's another facet of AI that they're going to be hitting soon. So a lot of our customers are delving deep on AI on their own sides to help with the clinical side as well. So we'll probably be in the middle at some point on that, coming from our customers, and then the work we're doing as well.
So this question, follow-up question to that, for any of the, one of the three of you or all of you. They struggle in my industry with integrating visibility systems and systems across different companies, and obviously your supply chains are complex. How well are those different systems in different companies talking to each other to enhance the supply chain efficiency? And actually, I mean, in some instances, we have companies, systems that don't even talk to other companies. There's companies that have barely gotten off paper in my industry. So anybody want to take that question about the myriad of systems and predictions and automated out there?
It's pain we feel every day. It's some of the biggest problems we're trying to solve. Especially, if you think about in healthcare, you've got a pretty set number of suppliers working in that space, from whom our hospital customers purchase a product. They all have a different level of sophistication in terms of data they can provide and the visibility side of things. So the big effort for us is having more conversations with the suppliers, understanding their capabilities, limitations, thinking about how we might partner to make it better, right? So what can that mean? And really understand root cause. A good example is I was at a conference last year. I was talking to one of the suppliers, and I'm not going to name him, but I just mentioned this problem to him. And I said, "This is killing us. Why can't we get visibility into this?" He's like, "Well, over the last 15 years, we've acquired 30 companies. And for each acquisition, that's a systems integration, right? It does take a lot of time. Sometimes they just get punted, and they're just kind of working by duct tape and mailing wire to make it just work as a business, much less to the point where they can actually have a fully integrated set of systems." So, when you hear that, you start thinking of the problem a little bit differently, and that's an area that we're trying to work with some of the suppliers. But that's a big one. This is some of the biggest suppliers that have been so big in the acquisition space. They just haven't gotten their systems are actually tightly integrated.
Matt or Ryan, do you have any commentary on that?
Yeah, from our side, everybody, the user wants to have the same visibility. They want to be able to see everything from end to end, which makes it difficult sometimes because we'll have one platform program that will give you transportation visibility, and the other one is inside the four walls, the WMS. So especially with labor rates and everything going up, the more integration is pushed. So if clients are placing orders, they want, if it's their ERP tied into the WMS, they want that all integrated as much as possible. To Chad's point, it takes a long time. Sometimes that isn't the top priority, but we run into talking with potential clients and winning business that they might just want to use their system. But the challenges we have, if anybody has multiple clients in a facility, you can't really operate very well with 6 different systems under one roof. It's hard to cross-train people. It's hard to do a lot of different things. So, being able to really utilize that one system that everybody can connect to is important. Now, we don't have the solution for it that everyone can agree to, but the integration is definitely a huge portion of kind of where we run into challenges right now, and it's a bigger focus on the IT side.
Have you hired, I'm sure I missed it for any of the three of you, I can only imagine the IT staff have only increased exponentially in the last few years to tackle these type of problems. And with that, how high in the company level does this get? C-level decisions?
Absolutely. We're still leveraging consultants to help with our implementation of our own WM systems and things like that. So it's high visibility. I'll go into some specifics here. Matt mentioned the WM space. We're working with a lot of our integrator and manufacturing partners for the automation that's going in, and a lot of their systems are starting to kind of overlap with the functionalities that WM has. And so it's kind of a balancing act. It's how well can you staff your own support teams to implement as much of the solution within your warehouse management system, or how much do you offer up to let the integrator have that functionality. And there's kind of a risk reward there because they say that they can do those types of functions, but it's newer to them than it is to your own groups. And so it's very high visibility because, I think we'll get into a little bit more what the typical warehouse worker looks like in the future and kind of the technical expertise that we need going forward. But IT is very much at the forefront of that.
What does the typical warehouse worker of the future look like? Is it a robot or is it a person?
Both. So it's going to be collaborations. You will have robots on the floor that are helping, perform some of those tedious functions, some of the simple moves, but it's a collaborative environment. So the floor level operators are going to be operating alongside, along with operating that equipment. But then in the background, we need the technical expertise to design, implement, integrate, maintain these highly automated solutions. And we're going to be looking to, it was mentioned, Connie, the president here, so I'll lead with anesthesiology. We need the local universities and really all the universities to be understanding that need, creating these technical programs, these internships to really expose the younger generations to what we're doing in supply chain. But we also need individuals entering the trades to be able to mechanically and electronically maintain these types of environments as well.
Any comments from? I'm going to go to you, Matt. Maybe something that we just covered. What's the most pressing issue that you see in your space in the next 5 years? How's the company reacting or planning for that, I guess?
Sure. Labor is obviously one of them, especially in Columbus, with how just saturated we are with new business coming in. So being able to really develop, retain employees, getting some talent from various places, so whether that's universities or just kind of self-grown within our own company. We've focused a lot more on that, but I think space is another one. So one thing we've tried to combat the space situation with, we've just recently opened a new facility in the Crlc area, but focused more on very narrow aisles, trying to maximize the space as much as possible to fit as much product into the building as we can. So more dock doors, more racking, going as vertical as possible, because that's just going to generate that revenue per square foot a lot more for us than some of the traditional maybe B-class type facilities that shorter ceilings, and you can really only do so much. It might be great for some cross-docking retail type stuff, and we've done some of that business, and it is more difficult to do in some of those 30, 40 foot clear height buildings that are really just built for that kind of fulfillment type of opportunity. So I think space and labor is just continuing to be a challenge, but filling up as much as we can and utilizing a single location rather than spreading ourselves out across multiple buildings and managing all those buildings is one of the things we're trying to focus on.
Do you have anything different than space or labor? I'm guessing Chad might. I see what you're saying. Different, a little bit of a
Different angle, but
Yeah.
I mean, for us, I talked about telemedicine and home health care, the rise of that. We're leaning very heavily into that to the point where, we've obviously, our history has been very strong in supply chain logistics. We have deep subject matter expertise there. Now we're bringing in experts that are more clinically minded. So, for example, we hired a pharmacist. It sounds like that's weird. Why would this company that works in tech and builds the software hire a pharmacist? It's just because the focus has really started to change for our customers. They're, whereas they used to be, supply chain people used to be solely focused on supply chain. That's changing in the healthcare space with these hospital groups. They're broadening that out, and they're looking at wholesale from the time from inbound, from the time it leaves the supplier to the time it makes it into the hospital, to the time it gets to the patient for patient care. The other side, outbound, think about specialty pharmacies. That workflow, the logistics of all that, but not only to get medicines ready to go, but then delivery all the way to the patient. That whole chain there has become so important across the organizations that we need to have better expertise there. So we've been hiring to solve for that and have more resources on board that know that space well and have the really good conversations, the deep conversations to help us identify the problems and find a way to provide solutions.
So I think if I'm hearing correctly, it's the space.
Some labor.
Space, labor, of course, labor is number one, and I know that that's number one on the region's mind as well. So space, labor, and expertise is what I'm hearing. Did we cover them all already?
Yeah, I'll touch on those two quickly since we've already hit them. It's exciting to see the growth with the industries that we're seeing, but Columbus needs to grow as well. not from just population, but infrastructure. Ryan, you hit on that a little bit with your slides. How do you attract the people to Columbus to fill these open jobs that we're creating? I've loved the fact, being in Columbus since '96, that I've always called it a little big city. It's a big city with a little city feel. It's not going to stay that way for much longer if we continue this. I can get to the airport 45 minutes before my flight leaves. That's going to change a little bit here, I imagine. But specific to retail and e-com, I'll shift here. We're anticipating that with the drive of these new industries and the growth there, the wage rates will continue to go up. Retail and e-com is not privy to the same margins that tech and biomedical and pharmaceutical have. So it's going to be a struggle to keep up with these other industries if we can't get enough people to come and support the growth that we're seeing. And we run a risk there of obviously having retailers starting to look at more affordable markets if that's the case.
That's poignant. I don't want to, so this is a kind of a prelude to a larger thing we're going to have in August. I think it's August 24th. The only reason that sticks into my mind is it's my 27th wedding anniversary. August 24th.
Your wife asked us to do that, so you could remember.
Did she tell you we weren't going to be here? So I won't see you on August 24th, but I wanted to open up the panel to questions from the audience, and there'll probably be some thought-provoking things. I'm sure that you guys have some things on your mind, and if it's not actually answered here today, it could be a note for the August 24th session, which is a day. It's a long.
It's a half a day.
Yeah, half a day, longer format.
Yeah.
So, questions from the audience? You guys have coffee? Come on.
I'll ask a quick one. If you were to pitch supply chain and logistics as a career opportunity to a young person or anyone, what would you say are some of the great things about working in your industry or industries?
I guess I can start. And one of the great things is, every day is different. Not sitting at a desk and just answering, well, sometimes just emails, but phone calls. But I mean, really, there's different challenges. So if you like solving problems, I mean, nothing. At least I'll speak for myself that we're doing is brain surgery, for example. It's a lot of just making the best making the best choice with just common sense with what's in front of us. So everything's continuing to get better and better. We learn and grow from working together as a team. It's a very team environment, but I think just solving problems and challenges each day is probably the most exciting part, at least from what I've seen.
Yeah, I would echo that. And for us in the healthcare supply chain space, it's a target-rich environment in terms of problems to solve. There are so many out there. So if you're into the problem solving, it's certainly attractive. In the healthcare space, that's always going to get tied eventually to patient care. So you can always have that conversation around knowing at the end of the day what you're doing theoretically should result in better patient care, better outcomes. And it's a conversation we have all the time as we recruit folks into companies.
I'll go back to the mention of the systems driving things and creating the familiarity within the workspace. I think that's really important for our younger generations coming up and getting interested in supply chain, that we're making it interesting for them, that we're not handing them a slip of paper that they're walking around a bunch of pallets to pick from, that we're with gaming and things like that, creating familiar types of systems and programs that translate to floor, whether that's through gamification of the workplace or things like that, where you can reward for the tasks that they're doing on a daily basis and make it more interesting. So kind of attraction to that versus the kind of manual environment that we were used to in the past.
I think, Chad, you make a good point, or I'm sorry, Ryan, you make a good point that
Chad did too.
you did. All three of you did. We've often discussed this logistics. A lot of people think it's driving a truck or loading a truck on a loading dock or driving a forklift. And supply chain, they have no idea what the supply chain is. Are there any high schools that have supply chain programs that anybody knows about here in Central Ohio? I didn't. I had a logistics class at OSU, and it was like very rudimentary, and the concept of supply chain was foreign. school. So I think getting to the parents and getting into the high school curriculum programs and even before high school and explaining that you can really do anything from be a pharmacist in the supply chain or fly a plane or be a software architect. There's so many disciplines within the logistics and supply chain industry that really, if you have something that you enjoy doing, and it was touched on particularly solving problems, because that's what logisticians are, the supply chain people are problem solvers, and people that like to think on their feet, multitask, kind of tapping into those desires, so somebody doesn't think that, oh, I just need to go get a finance degree or something like that. So there's a big world out there. I know we all know that because we're working in the industry. Any next questions from the audience? Yes, sir.
I know there are several agencies that help with the talent acquisition. You mentioned labor being a huge issue moving forward. What are your organizations doing to help build the relationships with the people who have their feet on the ground now to solve your labor problems and help solve those problems moving forward?
Mine's going to be different than probably everybody else. Because from our perspective, labor, the most intensive labor cost for us is software engineers, right? So we're obviously, we make all kinds of relationships in that space. So whether it's diversity area, conferences, certainly many of our engineers can work remotely, and that's a selling point. So we have an advantage there, but we're competing against everybody else who has that same advantage. So it's regardless of looking for talent, but it's helping the engineers and engineers really understand what we do, what makes us different from a technology standpoint, and again, the deep understanding of our problems that they're going to be helping to solve, because we can't really leverage them to the max unless they truly understand the problem space. So that's the big challenge for us, and it's something we'll remember there.
Yeah, I think for us, it's we're not as automated as obviously at DHL with doing just some of the multi-client operations. So having skilled labor is important. Having not just an expert in an area, but someone that can then develop into the management side is really the biggest step that we try to find talent. Someone that could be in more of that management type role. So we've connected with colleges, universities, even some high schools, because there's a lot of students out there that graduate high school and then we're not quite sure. From talking to the high schools, they're not quite sure what kind of jobs they're getting into. And, as mentioned, there's not really a lot of curriculum at the high school level, at least not enough, because if you are in the Groveport area and you're in a high school or somewhere around that area, there's more than enough opportunities out there. And really, from talking to some of those groups, coming to work on time and just asking questions can get you to a pretty good role in a company. So that's kind of what we're trying to do, is connect with those groups just from the very beginning, just to get the word out there. Because again, there's nothing that we're doing that is in my realm. It's not, we're not looking for pharmacists or even engineers at that point right now. It's just labor that can be skilled and managed.
Echo quickly that we have a large focus on internships and hiring from our internships. We have hundreds that intern every year with us. So that's a huge push for us to try to get the younger generations in there. I'll also admit that I've seen HR scouring LinkedIn profiles to find the right candidates. I'm sure everybody has had that challenge as well. So I know HR has some great things that they're working on as well, but I think interns and partnering with the local universities to want to educate what's out there, to then try to build our workforce on that as well.
And I'll just chime in from our perspective. We actually we have an operation at Crlc. We handle the ramps. We handle everything that has anything to do with touching the aircraft. So unloading the cargo, loading the cargo, fueling the aircraft, de-ice, even catering and crew arrangements we do as the airport authority. That's unusual for an airport in the United States, but we took that responsibility upon ourselves to provide high quality service. We do partner with the private sector, but during the supply chain crunch, we had to scale up from 20 ramp workers to 120 ramp workers over the course of just a couple months, really. So we had to bring on board a staff actually what became two staffing agency employees that worked in the building with us. One of them was kind of recruiting and the other one was kind of training and getting them through, because there's a lot of regulatory training, and put a guy out on a ramp next to an aircraft without a considerable amount of training and background vetting. So we had to actually in-house a staffing agency, and I know that many of the retail companies do that as well. So that's kind of one of the things that we did to work on the labor issue. So I think I'm about at my time. Is that?
Yeah, 2 minutes, 2.
Oh, one more question.
Actually, more comment. When the purpose of you guys to high school a little bit more, I sit on the advisory board for the South Missouri City Schools Career Development Program. It's still relatively new, but we're looking to kind of help kids look at other paths outside of things, for normal college pathway. We got a presence with BS and FedEx in that program, but if anybody's interested in trying to work with the Southwestern City School District, comes on and then get you in front of the educators that lead the program.
Just a quick question about growth and development. When you, as you expand and as you talk about the labor force, we are a commercial painting company, and we are also looking to get those high school students to get into the trades. As you look at new construction and maintenance of current facilities, are you looking for local contractors, or are you bringing in, folks, from other states, maybe your home state or home business? Just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
As far as general contractors, like maintaining facilities, or
New construction or maintenance as you grow and expand.
Usually we'll outsource a lot of that with what we're doing, but there's clearly a lot of growth with new facilities being built and then facilities being maintained. I would say there's opportunities out there from, as I mentioned, there's very large, oversized type of equipment, generators, things that are being handled outside of your standard pallets. So handling different types of equipment, not just your forklift. There's a variety of different types of equipment out there that a lot of people don't use or aren't comfortable with, that if someone's willing to learn and be trained on some of these types of things, I think there's a lot of opportunities there. I don't know if that is kind of pointed towards some of your question, but just tying it back into kind of the warehousing side, there are a lot of opportunities that aren't just picking, shipping, things like that we do get involved with quite a bit. It's good just being open for the opportunities that are out there. There are some.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So my name is Evan Black. I work with the Learning Academy. So I actually work with the students at Groveport, and I can tell you right now, their idea of warehouse is immediately exactly what you said. It's staying online, picking or retrieving items. Our organization, what we're trying to do is get them lean system certified, so that's recognized by you guys. We're trying to get them logistics prep where they learn how to get a OSHA card. They learn how to interview themselves. I know you were talking about, you guys have created that we were talking about ways that we can bridge the students at Groveport, because there is a big need for warehouse workers. And how would we like to go about getting everybody together so we can make a plan of action, so that we can get you those students? There's plenty of students that want to work. No student really wants to work in this has to do. And this has growth opportunity past just being the warehouse school. So is there a way we can kind of bridge that gap and really get you direct students that really want to work in the warehouse and learn how to expand the routes and comes to work?
I have a suggestion.
Yes, sir.
Get as many business cards today as you can. And ask.
Okay.
Tourism visits, visit gas as much as you can.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you very much, Brian. I hope that everybody got as much out of it as we were intending for the long title of today's event. So if there are any outstanding questions that you didn't want to ask, feel free afterwards to address those directly with our panelists. I also want to go back to the education one piece, that conversation. One of the things in my role as director of the Columbus Regional Logistics Council that I hear a lot from people when I ask, how did you get into the supply chain or logistics space? It was not intentional. It was where they started because they needed a job during the summer after high school, between college or between years of college. And it was good, and they stayed there. They didn't know that their career path was going to take them that direction. So one of the things that I'm talking with our advisory board about and others is how do we make that more intentional at the younger level? How do we get down into the weeds of the middle school students that will take that and with excitement and take that home and share that with parents? Because we know that's the #1 influencer on children. And back to your point, when parents hear, not just students, but when parents hear, my child's going to go work at a warehouse, they're thinking strictly pick and pack. They don't know the other opportunities that lie within. So it's big and we're aware of it and we're working and we're glad to work with you on it as well. So the CRLC, as I said, this event is put on by, is created and developed by our, some of our advisory board that sits on the committee. Some of them are here. Brian, Carl, where's Carl? Carl's back there. And then Dave is back there. You're in the wrong space. You need to be back there. And then John Meyer, is he here? Okay. So those four helped put this on. So if this was their idea, that's the point. The CRLC advisory, I don't work in that space. I direct the advisory, and we together bring all this information together. So if there's something a burning thing that's going on in your world, let us know about it because it could become the topic of another event. Our next event is August 24th. Brian won't be there, as we already know, but it is a half-day conference with opening session, breakout sessions, and closing session, and it is at ODU, but it'll be in the building behind us. So it won't be in this space, it'll be over there. Reminder about the scholarship. We also have workshops on July 13th. I think you'll see them at another slide. Yes, I'm getting a nod, yes. You'll see them. They are, it's called Elevate Your Voice. The Women in Supply Chain and Logistics would share your voice. This next one is Elevate Your Voice. It's a 2.5-hour workshop on emotional EQ, emotional intelligence at Brewdog. Where's our friend from Brewdog? Where's Miranda? Where's Miranda? Oh, right in front of me. Miranda and Brewdog, we are hosting it there. They are the same session, so there's a morning and there's an afternoon. I hope I see you all there. All right. Did I recap everything? I think I did. All right. So now it is my pleasure to bring up the President and CEO of the Columbus Chamber of Commerce, Don Paris.
Few quick thank yous and we'll get you all on the road. Thank you all so very much. We know how busy everyone is, especially in supply chain and logistics these days. Matt, Chad, Brian, great panel conversation. Thank you so much. Brian Schreiber, how about another round of applause? Our presenting partners, Ease Logistics and Schneider Downs, thank you so much. Our impact partner, FST Logistics, and Jill Coleman is a board member. Jill, wait. Thank you, Jill. Thanks, everyone at FST. Our leader partner is Dupler Office. If you're looking for office furniture, reach out to our friends at Dupler Office. Our venue partner, of course, Ohio Dominican University. And look for our upcoming programs. Not only the great programming that we do in supply chain and logistics, but in everything we do. All you have to do is visit columbus.org/events to learn more. Thank you all so very much. Have a great day and stay cool. Bye-bye.